Mr. Streeting, you've lost 197 of the 285 seats you were defending. That's 2/3. So you're now less popular now than you were in 2021, even though you're meant to be in a honeymoon period.
Well, look, Camilla, I think as the Prime Minister said over the weekend, people voted for change at the last general election, and at the moment people aren't feeling that change, and I think that's reflected in the results on Thursday. And you know, if I think about the NHS, for example, where we are making real progress, waiting lists have fallen 6 months in a row, the 2 million more appointments we promised in our first year, we actually delivered 7 months early. We're now standing at over 3 million. You know, if you're one of the people who's come off the waiting list, you'll be delighted. But if you're one of the 7 million cases still on the waiting list, you're probably shouting at the telly at this very moment saying, don't tell me things are improving, I'm still waiting. So it's a good example, whether it's waiting lists, whether it's interest rates falling, whether it's wages rising faster and higher than inflation. These are moves in the right direction. Will people be feeling the benefits of that yet? No. That's why the Prime Minister said he wants to go further and faster on delivering real improvements that people feel. Because if they don't feel it by the next general election, they will look for change elsewhere.
Although Streeting opens the interview by leaning on a series of statistics to describe the raw, unfiltered sense of loss, the numbers only tell part of the story. The figures are meant to set the tone, but what follows makes it clear that data alone can't capture the full impact being discussed. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Well, we'll get on to further and faster. Let's just read an alternative narrative to the one that you've just spun me there. People have had enough. Enough of low wages and sky-high bills. Enough of high streets being left to rot. Enough of crumbling infrastructure and public services that don't work. Enough of broken promises. Do you know who said that? It was your Labour colleague, the Labour MP Dan Carden. So even your own colleagues think that you're doing a bad job.
Well, I agree with Dan on every single word you've just read out there. I agree with him entirely, and I think that's the impatience people are feeling. That's why people are hungry for change, because all of those challenges, and there are many more that I could list besides, were challenges we walked into last July. And turning around the country with multiple and deep crises does take time. So the impatience that people are feeling, I feel, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, in my day-to-day work, I'm constantly driving to go faster. I'm always being told by people to slow down. You know, I'm going hard at layers of NHS bureaucracy at the moment, and I'm being told by people on our own side, oh, hang on a minute, just think it through a bit more, go more slowly. We haven't got time to do that.
As a result of Streeting's agreement with the criticism, the failure that Tommy pointed out is effectively confirmed.
How about this idea? You slow down on cutting pensioners' winter fuel. That has been your poll tax policy, hasn't it? It's universally unpopular, even with your own voters, and most people cited it as the reason they didn't back you. The winter fuel allowance is one of the worst Labour policies that's ever been announced, isn't it, Mr. Streeting?
Well, I'm not going to insult your viewers or the voters by pretending that winter fuel allowance hasn't been an issue on the doorstep. It has, and we've all heard that. In fact, I think pretty much everything that the Chancellor has done to raise the money needed to invest in public services like the NHS has been opposed by someone. We've had the same on things like getting rid of the VAT exemption for private schools, asking the wealthiest non-DOMs to pay more in their fair share of tax, the employer national insurance decision that we've made. We knew when we made those decisions that they risked being unpopular. We made those decisions because we thought they were the right decisions so that we can invest in our public services, turn the country around, get Britain out of the massive hole it was left in. So we you know, that's why we take, it's not because we want to be unpopular or I want to be knocking on doors and someone having a go at me for something we've done. It's because we genuinely think they're the right decisions.
It acknowledges that they are knowingly pushing a policy their own voters dislike. And it hasn't helped the economy, has it? The IMF has downgraded our growth forecast. Streeting's lack of a response creates a silence that speaks volumes.
It hasn't helped the economy, has it? The IMF has downgraded our growth forecast.
Streeting defends Powell by saying he made a human error, while at the same time backing actions that Labour has long opposed. Tommy quickly points out the hypocrisy. Make sure to like and subscribe. With time running out and a choir literally singing in the background, Tommy presses on. She points out that the North East London Foundation Trust issued official guidance labelling people with gender-critical views using a derogatory term, and argues that this guidance should be withdrawn immediately. The document also claims it is unlawful to exclude trans women from women-only spaces, which directly conflicts with a recent Supreme Court ruling. Streeting responds by saying the NHS is updating its guidance in line with the court's decision and promises to look into the specific guidance from the trust. He admits he struggles to understand why it was written in the first place and says dealing with problems that should never have existed has become a regular part of his role as Health Secretary. He insists he is getting on with the job, says progress is being made, but accepts that people need to actually feel and see that improvement, whether they work in the NHS or rely on it. He claims things are objectively getting better, while also admitting there is still a long road ahead. As the interview wraps up, the noise of the choir almost drowns everything out, making Streeting's familiar clichés sound even smaller next to Tommy's direct challenges. When the quotes are laid out clearly, a pattern emerges. Streeting acknowledges problems, offers possible fixes, and leans on apologies, but Tommy lands every major point. From failures in the electoral process, to cuts affecting pensioners, to Powell's comments and the NHS overstepping its role, her scrutiny stays sharp and consistent. Meanwhile, Streeting's careful spin begins to unravel.